ever since the release of Arc Raiders, there's another game that I've been dying to try. Marathon! And I finally got to try it in last week's Server Slam. There's just one tiny problem. Where Arc Raiders has a huge community focus, with many players wanting to cooperate, Marathon almost feels like the complete opposite.
Jeg ved ikke, hvad fuck knapperne er.
It's like the whole atmosphere of the game is way more PvP inclined. Ark is about humans trying to survive climate disasters when robots from space attack. That's almost begging for players to team up against the bad robots. Marathon, on the other hand, is about humans going to a whole other planet, and now there's a whole corporation who thinks they own everything, so people are pissed off or something, I don't know. This doesn't exactly scream let's team up, and after playing for a while, I realized something. Marathon is missing Arc Raiders' best element. I have yet to meet a friendly player in Marathon, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just a bit weird, isn't it? On the surface, there isn't the biggest difference between the two games. You jump in, fight some bad guys, loot things, and leave. Everyone is happy, right? Well, no. What I like most about Ark isn't the gunplay, the graphics, the enemies, or even the progression. Cause, let's be honest, there is none. No, the best part of Arc Raiders is the proximity chat and the players. It's like the game is sort of afraid of true progression, just to avoid creating a gap between new and geared up players. So, to compensate, they just made the starting weapons really strong in PvP, and also made probably the best proximity chat to date. So, to me, talking to other players is the most fun part. Whether you're killing on site or trying to help other players, pretty much everyone communicates. And even if you don't have a mic, you can talk through the game's communication wheel. Marathon, on the other hand, makes proximity chat optional. Now, I'm not saying everyone should be forced to talk, but being able to turn it off kinda defeats the point, doesn't it? I don't mind a more PvP heavy game. Despite how funny it is teaming up with players in Ark, I also sometimes wish PvP didn't make me feel so bad. I mean, I can't shoot anyone, cause they immediately tell me not to shoot. And if I do end up shooting them, I just feel like a villain. Not having to think about morality in Marathon is the biggest difference between the two games. But why is that? Why do people not talk? And why are people not friendly? Well, despite the games seemingly being very similar, they are actually quite different. So, let's take a look at what separates them. Since I've already thrown shade at Ark's progression, let's start with that. In Ark, you can craft, but first, you have to be lucky enough to find the blueprints for the different weapons, consumables, and throwables. Now, that would seem like the more you play, the better blueprints you're going to find, and then you're going to be able to defeat stronger enemies and players. Well, yeah, but no. All you really need is a Stitcher or Kettle for PvP, and an Anvil for PvE. Now, the Stitcher and Kettle are grey weapons, which means you have them unlocked instantly, and they're very cheap. The Anvil you do need to find a blueprint for, which can take a varying amount of time. But when you do get it, you're pretty much set. Except for some upgrades in the skill tree, that is literally all you need to be able to defeat everything other than maybe the Queen and Matriarch, which you probably need a group of players for anyway. I mean, I defeated every enemy in the game completely without looting anything. It's really not that hard. But there's a good reason for that. Ark is not a numbers game. There's no levels, flat amounts of HP or damage. The game is very much focused on immersion. All the enemies are physics based, so while, yeah, they do have a set amount of HP, you don't always need to shoot them X amount of times. Just like shoot an engine off and sometimes they'll crash. Other times they'll adjust and you just shoot them again. The point is, the game's combat is varied and immersive. It's not always about shooting until they're dead. It's about using the environment and the enemy's behavior to your advantage. More playtime will not guarantee you better gear, but it will make you better at understanding the game. Now let's shift the focus to Marathon. Now, I have bought the game, but have yet to actually dive into the full release. But here's what I've gathered from playing the Server Slam. What immediately caught my eye is the amount of weapons in the game, and also that they're all grey, which, just like in Ark, is the lowest tier. So, how do you progress? Well, the game has many different mods that you can apply to your weapons. Some are pretty insignificant, and others will change the playstyle completely. It could be a bit more damage on AI enemies, extra ammo on the last reload, different types of scope, or a whole ass shield. Instead of tiering the weapons, the mods you apply to the weapons are what determines their quality. So instead of locking weapons behind blueprints or progression, you just pick a favorite and build around that. Now, let's talk about the enemies. There is one big distinction between the two games. In Ark, the enemies feel more like environmental hazards, rather than just a computer-controlled player. They're sort of a part of the world, being physics-based and all. And also, the normal enemies are quite weak. It just takes a good shot or two and they're down. As mentioned, the whole world building and lore sort of invites player cooperation. It's us versus them, and the bigger enemies also will require teamwork. In Marathon, on the other hand, the enemies resemble other players quite a bit more. Just some dudes with guns walking around. The thing is though, that they're quite smart. If they're alone, they will run away and seek out their friends, but if they're in a group, they will try to overwhelm and surround you. One time they even blocked all the exits in the building I was in, and I was very quickly surrounded and killed. They sort of try to push you out of your safe spots. They are aggressive and feel like active threats, actually cooperating to hunt you down. This makes the game move much faster. They're also always around buildings, so you have to navigate tight spaces while finding them too. One thing I was worried about in Marathon was getting two-shot by a player I couldn't even see. That's one thing I really dislike about Ark, is how quickly you can get downed by a player with decent aim. Bam! Bam! Then you're done. And while time to kill can be very quick in Marathon as well, it has one thing that Ark doesn't. Classes. In Marathon, you play as different shells. They are basically roles with different abilities. One is a healer and can send out healing drones. One is a rogue and can go invisible. And one is a tank with a shield and so on, right? This means that when playing in a trio, you can cover 3 different roles. So, if you get jumped by another team and lose a teammate immediately, you most likely have some defensive or supportive abilities ready to use, so you can get your teammate back up quickly. You'll also most likely have some offensive abilities to push the enemy team back. With good communication and the right abilities, I'm assuming you'll be able to outsmart the other team and turn the tide. But that also means that playing solo sort of feels wrong? Doesn't really seem like the intended way to play, to me at least. But I mean, you'd think players would be more willing to team up when the enemies are so tough, but I guess not. Now, this isn't the biggest problem in Ark, cause in solo, most players are friendly, and it also has a big emphasis on sound. Which means you can usually avoid other players if you play right. And maybe Marathon would be more like that if they didn't make the proximity chat optional. Again, I don't expect every player to talk, but I find it a bit weird that the proximity chat is optional. It doesn't make sense to use at all if I don't know if the other players can hear me. So I just have to default to shooting other players and not taking any chances, cause I'd assume they're gonna do the same. It also just doesn't have a communication wheel like Ark does, so any communication with strangers at all is just not expected. So with all these elements combined, it seems that Marathon is taking an entirely different route. So it's not really that it's missing any important social components, but rather it's just taking a different focus. Ark has been pretty split between PvP and PvE players, while the devs seemingly try to nudge players towards doing PvE. So for all you PvP enjoyers out there, Marathon might fill that hole more than Ark does. It's faster, it's more aggressive, and the gunplay is far more precise. It sort of gives players stronger tools to compete and fewer tools to cooperate. So naturally, it makes sense for players to be more aggressive too. TLDR, play Ark if you want to team up with strangers, and play Marathon if you want to shoot strangers. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that it has a ranked mode. I'm really excited to see what that's all about. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Thanks for listening to me yap about Marathon. Alright, bye! Ark players nice, Marathon brings some spice. So ready, the million be ready to throw the dice. Push every fight, gotta aim real precise. One bad peek and you're paying the price.